one of the calls that we took at a very early stage around May or June was the fact that we are not going to cut cost, but rather let's add more value by giving additional services. Boom shakalaka, it's a beautiful day as I always say. I'm your personal happiness coach Clint Verghese. I welcome you to the first episode of the Engage and Inspire podcast. In today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to introduce you to a very good friend of mine, also my manager and a business partner, Nikhil Bise. I've known him for almost over half a decade and he knows a lot of my secrets that not a lot of the world knows. Are you ready to dig deep into it? Let's do this. Welcome to the podcast. We're yet to figure out a name. This is episode 1. And on today's episode of this beautiful podcast, we've got Nikhil on board. Nikhil is my homie, my friend, a philosopher, a guide, and also manages me. So welcome onto the podcast, Nikhil.
It's my pleasure, Clancy.
It just took us an hour to figure out how to get the lighting, how to get the framing on, and so on and so forth. So Nikhil, what should we begin our podcast with?
So I remember in March we had a couple of gigs planned.
Yeah,
and
April we were supposed to fly to Russia and there were some international gigs lined up.
And suddenly everything was shut because, and from there we have seen the roughest patch. You know, we have been working together for 6 years now.
Yes.
This was the roughest patch where we were actually looking at how to sustain. So here, for an artist fraternity as a whole, for the entertainment industry as a whole, you and me, we have discussed over calls of how to just pull this through during the lockdown. But I remember you always being positive that Nikhil, don't worry. Don't worry, we got this. Just have patience. I remember I was ready to take gigs, you know, which were not of your profile. I mean, which were, you know, where Clint Verghese was not required. They were,
they just wanted a performer. And I think this brings to a very interesting part of the podcast where we're going to discuss how artists have slashed their prices during the lockdown. And because, you know, everybody out of the fear that will we get any work from here on, how will we navigate through these challenging times. Most of the artists, especially in the MC fraternity that I can talk about, everybody at least cut their cost to 50% or
more
even
that,
like, you know, a lot of the like senior, most, like very famous and known MCs cut their cost to 1/4 or 1/5 of their pricing, right?
Exactly.
It's out of necessity, and I think one of the calls that we took at a very early stage around May or June was the fact that we are not going to cut cost, but rather let's add more value by giving additional services.
That is what I'd loved about you the most. You decided that since virtual events was something we had never done before. But you said, "Chalo, let's take it up as a challenge." Like you always say, you know, these things are challenges, and we need to overcome this. And I saw you coming up with ideas every single day, Quincy. From getting a studio in the house.
We're actually streaming from our bedroom right now as we're speaking. So.
And I remember right from I guess the first couple of gigs on the virtual gigs we did from the mobile or laptop. After that, immediately you knew how we could, you know, improve customer experiences. You switched to DSLR. You got in lights. And then there was this part of you where you wanted to give more services. If you're not slashing cost, you would want to give more services, and that is where the illusionist came. That is where the singer came. I first time saw you and a guitarist coming together and performing on a virtual platform, and the quality of it was so good. That is where, you know, that is what shows the character of a person. like how a person behaves or responds to a crisis defines his character.
One of the challenging situation was nobody knew what to do and how to start, right?
Okay.
And I said that's the best part, because if nobody knows it, so then then if you work hard, you can have a head start. It's like that, right? Because if there were like a lot of people who knew it and we didn't know it, then that's a bad situation or a bad condition. But if it's equal for everyone, then you just got to keep your hustle mode on. And I feel it's not the lockdown, or it's not like a pre-lockdown, post-lockdown. If you're a hustler, and like you're a hustler, like real hustler, then you can navigate through any situations and challenges in life. I truly believe the ability to keep yourself self-motivated is the superpower that we need to work on. If all of us can work on that, I think the consequence of it is being able to go through any challenging situation.
See, Clancy, the question is how. I remember I have had real tough days during the lockdown, Clancy. I mean, there was nothing much to do. We were locked inside the house. We couldn't go anywhere. How did you still keep on to that energy, to that enthusiasm, to that hustling spirit? What was that kept you going and pushing harder?
See, we all invest into a better version of ourselves, right? We wear good clothes, we eat good food, we watch whatever movies, or we hang with people, is because we want to be better, feel better. Everything is, it's a better version of ourselves. Now think of it this way. We all want to go to, let's say, a destination. We all want to go to Manali, right? And to reach to Manali, you have to actually, either you can directly fly into Kullu airport, or you go to either Chandigarh or Delhi airport, and then you have to take a road trip. And there is so much of like road trip in the mountains is not an easy job for a lot of people. If you get sick of long distance travel and all of that, it's not going to be easy. But the point is this: when you thought of you wanting to go to Manali, it can't be just that when you reached Manali you're happy. Like it's not the destination that matters; it's the journey, right? And just like that, it's not only when we achieve or when we get something that matters the most. The process of achieving it, if you enjoy it, if you enjoy and do anything, the consequence of it is you will be able to achieve whatever you have planned for. And I am a very strong believer in that, because I think largely everybody looks at it as, if I get it or if I achieve something, only then will I be happy. But I truly believe if you are happy and you enjoy the process, you will achieve and get whatever you want.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just it can be like a wordplay here and there, but I believe in that. I try to live it up accordingly. And looping in back to the conversation about the lockdown, right? I think that was exactly what it was. I thought this is an opportunity. We got to work on it. And because I believe in really, like, if any type of service is the best thing to do in life. Like if you look at like the biggest social workers or the biggest entrepreneurs in the world, everybody is doing some sort of service. It's not about them, it's about the people. It's purpose driven. So I said, why don't we apply the same filter? So that was the core idea of wanting to upgrade. Everybody said virtual events were not impactful and live events में मजा आता था, virtual में नहीं आता था. तो मैंने बोला यार अगर virtual में मजा नहीं आ रहा है, that is an opportunity, because now you have to look at how do you make it more मजेदार, right? So from the basics of, everybody realized that internet connectivity is a challenge. So we upgraded the internet connectivity to 300 Mbps speed. Then we said the challenges are audio or video में मतलब it looks like webcam of the laptop is very blurry, the audio is not enhanced. So we said, okay, chalo, let's work on that. Then we thought that's all that we'll have to do. Just get like some lights, get a DSLR, put some tripod stand, get a podcast mic system. And then we said, okay, now we have cracked virtual events. When we did all of that, we realized that, Arey Baba, what about the engagement now? How do you virtually engage, connect with people? So then we constantly worked on improving our product or service or whatever we call as, and we try to come out with a lot of games, activities, engagement stuff. And I think we're still continuously on the process of working on it. I truly believe virtual is here to stay. Like people,
it will stay.
It will stay. People are saying that virtual will die down once the lockdown is over.
Definitely not, Lindsay.
I think virtual is here to stay.
In fact, I feel that this is an opportunity to go across borders. Like now,
of what we've done, like
yes,
things that
we have done.
Yeah.
So now it's not just for live events. You are restricted to an area.
Yeah.
So now you can just stream virtually to other countries, and you know your client base actually increases. So
True.
This lockdown came in as an opportunity for us to explore more avenues.
Yeah. And I think that's where it has worked for a lot of people, and it has worked against some people as well.
Exactly.
Because traditionally, who were rooted to the idea that this is what or how they approach. If there is no flexibility in your approach in life in general, changes will always be disasters. Is what I feel.
Me and Clins were schoolmates. We were in the same school.
You were my junior, bro.
Yes, I'm 2 years junior to Clins.
Yeah.
So I guess all of the Holy Family kids watching this.
Special shout out to Holy Family Convent High School, Vasai East, where all the producers of that farm. And I think we are some organic A-grade, triple A-grade quality producers, by the way.
Absolutely. So, you know, we remember Clins as the guy who would throw the discus throw from one end of the ground to the other end of the ground.
I remember 40 meters plus on a 2 kg discus is what my most best performance was.
So Clins was he was not always this fit. Obviously, he was not always this fit.
I was fit. I feel I was fit, but I was huge and fit.
Huge. Okay, fitness. Huge and fit. Okay, he was
part of,
he was huge and fit, and he was always the popular guy. Always the person who stood out in crowd. And yes, he was adored by all the students, all the juniors, all the teachers. But also Clins, I remember Clins had a aggressive or a violent side to him as well, which I have not seen for a long time.
Yeah.
What was that about? I mean, you still have temper? You don't have temper?
The question being, do I get angry in life? I do definitely get angry in life. But then what happens is, it's not about, you need to understand that it's not the emotions that you are, but you are the person who is going through those emotions. So I think that's where I talk about the importance of awareness. So I do get angry, but I don't respond to my anger the way I used to before. Like, you know, I would literally, through vocal or like physical things, I would respond, like I would express myself. So I think I've learned to channelize a lot of my emotions in general, especially the ones that are very intense, you know. Like I remember a lot of times, but I think one of the things when I'm on stage that I still need to control on is, once I'm on stage, I just start jumping off stages.
We have all seen that.
Yeah, and bringing back to that topic where jumping off stages had become such a famous, such a favorite thing for me, that I had broken literally like.
Yeah, I remember there was a ligament tear, and there was a ligament tear, right?
Ligament tear, ACL reconstruction had to be done for me. So I always say the story, right? This is what I say. My life is what I call the 3P story. Grew up in an average South Indian middle class family, where you know, I realized the importance of making a lot of money. Because if you didn't, a lot of things you desired for, or you believe, or you think you deserve, is something that you never got. Because you wanted an Adidas shoe, and you know, your dad gave you a Bata ka juta. You wanted to wear that fancy Levi's ka jeans. Friday market से मम्मी jeans लेके आती थी 100-150 रुपए वाले. So for me, मेरे लिए वो बहुत important था कि यार, when I grow up, I can afford, you know, shoes or watches or like jeans.
Yes,
and all of that.
I feel see, the family that we have been raised in, a proper typical average middle class family. We look at the requirement more than the affordability.
Fair enough. You know, I'm with you on that. I think, and I think that process kind of helps us kind of wanting to work towards making it happen.
Correct.
So if, let's say, if everything we got whenever we asked for it, शायद हम लोग value नहीं करते थे वो सब चीजों का. तो I mean, I'm with you on that fact कि यार कि it's good that we didn't get everything that we thought we asked for.
Ultimately, if you are whatever you are today, it's because of those little things.
100%. I don't deny that.
Because see, even now, if you want to buy, you buy a fancy Levi's jeans, but you can still get the job done with a cheaper local brand.
100%.
Now it's just about, these are luxuries now.
Yeah.
Which comes with the lifestyle you live.
Yeah, true that. So I think the choice of wanting to buy it or not is A, and B being, can you afford it or not?
Exactly.
Like, are you in a position where you can buy it? Like, of course, let's say, I'm walking through and I pass through, let's say, a Domino's or let's say McDonald's for that matter, and I want to have one of those Whoppers or some burger. Having money, you can buy it, but you don't want to eat it because for whatever reason is A, and not having money to buy it is a very difficult thing, right? So I was very sure that in the first part of my life story of what I call as the 3 P's, the first P is the story of penny, the story of money. So I was sure that it's not about can I eat that burger or not, but do I have money that whenever I want to eat, I can buy it. So I was very sure that I want to work hard, make money, like making money is the goal of life. Then I grew up, I was just out of school in college, and I think that was a time when that whole discussion happened in the peers, we should, if you want to do work, you should follow your passion. Make money following your passion because you will be happy and you will be all that jazz. And that's when I kind of, started performing with my band and touring around, doing whatever we used to do, hosting shows at malls and college festivals and all that jazz. And that was the story of passion, because now it was about making money by doing what I loved or what I thought is going to give me joy and makes me feel like an emperor. When I'm on stage, I put my hands up, people are jumping, dancing, and I can move people. And in the story of passion, and the next story is what I call the story of purpose. So it's the story of penny, passion, and purpose. The only difference between passion and purpose is when it was the story of passion, it was about me. It was about me feeling like an emperor. It was me about, me putting up my hand. I was the main star in the story of passion. In the story of purpose, it's the same thing. I'm on stage, people are out there. But then I realized that when I put my hands up and I could make that difference to people, I realized that there are people out there who are going through emotional breakdowns, are going through some financial issues, or are, having some level of disabilities in general, or for some reason they are just anxious and just in an angry mood. But suddenly, because I was on stage, I could do that. Their mood has changed. They don't feel any more vulnerable, or they don't feel any more the way they used to feel. And I thought, if that is my superpower, then I should now amplify that impact.
Absolutely.
Right? If whatever I'm doing on stage can bring about that level of a difference to someone else, so then that's become my story of purpose. It's now, I'm not the king anymore. Now the king is the people who are in front of me. And I said the power of digital medium or social media or technology in general is the ability to amplify that impact. And that's why in today's times, we curate content across all social media platforms. We have a collaboration with Trell. There are a lot of brands who kind of get in touch with us to curate content for them because they see that we add value through the dialogues that we have.
Yeah.
So I think just summarizing the whole life story of what I call it as the story of penny, story of passion, story of purpose. I feel now is the time when I have moved towards the story of purpose. Right? We're trying to figure out how we can add a lot of value. Is it through the virtual events that we host, or the workshops and the webinars that we conduct, or what we are envisioning to do, the Coach Clint's Happiness Academy, or the Engage and Inspire Leadership Academy, or through different ways that we can add value in people's lives. So I think now it's a purpose story for me. Like, I know people there are a lot of my friends who work hard because it's about earning money and supporting the family. That is the purpose, right? I think there are a lot of us who are blessed with a lot of opportunities where we don't have to work because it's about, paying that EMI that month, or feeding the family, or many other things. And I think that is a great privilege. So for everybody who's watching this, if you are one of those privileged people where you don't have to count how much bank balance you have at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, based on the fact that, if we don't have X amount of numbers, then it has, then a lot of things are at question. So then that is a blessing. That's a privilege.
That's a
and
privilege.
I think that privilege comes only when our parents or our grandparents have created that level of infrastructure.
Exactly.
So if you today have that privilege, make sure that you don't just spend too much, because our life is actually a loan that we've taken from our future generations. So, just save it up so that you equalize your loan and your whatever debt, and what is the opposite thing of loan? Savings.
Asset?
You clear your asset. Okay, yeah. So build asset. Thanks, finance guy. So build asset for your future generations if you are blessed, and if you are not, still build asset for your current, for your parents, for your family, for
Absolutely.
other things of that sort.
I have always felt, Lindsay, that God has been very generous with me when it came to a lot of things. I mean, look at me. I've always got. That's my personal opinion. I mean, I've always got things much more than I have deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, may it be friends.
Mm-hmm.
See, look, I have you. Be it family, be it my colleagues, be it my boss. I mean, I have been blessed with the best of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that at some point, all of these things are for a purpose, as you said, purpose. And I feel that I need to give it back to those who need it.
Yeah.
So my purpose in life would be, living a life where I work hard for myself, for my family, for my future generation, and look back, pick someone up, and help them and give them an opportunity which I had got because someone believed in me.
Yeah, true that. I think that brings to a very interesting part in this conversation about Nanni Si Asha, right? I mean, that's what an initiative that we have started with the vision that we can actually make a lot of difference.
Exactly.
And I think, people generally think doing charity or social work is about paying money to some people, or just feeding someone with, let's say, for a meal, pay for someone's meal. This is, and I'm very old, old styled in this thought when it comes to this. You can feed 10 people, and after that meal is over, what are they going to do?
Yes.
So if you can teach them to cook, then now, if you can teach them how to earn what it takes
exactly. Here I would quote, forgive me if I'm wrong, I guess there's a quote in the Bible that says that if you feed a person, you feed him for a day, you teach him to fish, you feed him for life.
Yes.
So that is the purpose that we have started Nanni Si Asha for. Basically, Nanni Si Asha, it's a NGO, and the vision is to give opportunity to every kid that deserves the opportunity, because we got an opportunity because someone believed in us. So the only way I feel that these kids can break the shackles of the poverty that has been coming downward is by education. If you can educate a child, you are actually breaking that chain, and the entire tree, the entire generations below them will bear the fruit of it.
100%, and I'm with you on that. And I think one of the goal with Nanni Si Asha is to teach people to fish.
Absolutely.
And one of the vision that I have, and I think that's something that we're working on right now with what we're trying to do as the Engage and Inspire Leadership Academy, is also to bring together a bunch of purpose-driven individuals who can further teach people, who can then teach people to fish. It's not just teaching people to fish, but it's about bringing together those people who can teach people that and who can build people to build others.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's just like layers and layers of it. But I think that's how, my vision, Nikhil, it's very simple. I want this world to be a happier place to live in. One of the reasons why we're not putting why are we only not focusing on putting let's say gig videos or pictures or some sexy pictures of mine, is because we are actually adding value through our conversation.
Exactly.
There are a lot of people, keep constantly getting messages, DMs on Instagram or on Facebook or on other platforms that we curate content, and they say that, you know, today I was really depressed, or today I was feeling really low or down and out, and watching your video kind of just, you know, just brightened my mood up. Now when that person's mood is brightened up, every person he or she is interacting with is having an impact.
It's contagious.
It's contagious, right? So if I can sit in my house, in my own room, and create some content which can have that level of impact on someone else, I see the ripple effect happening across, right? Technology, it helps you reach out, it helps you amplify the impact that you want to have in life, and it can make or break depending on what direction you choose to work on. And I really believe, right, at least by the end of, before I pass away or before I die, right, I really envision that we will be able to touch at least 1 billion people's lives. There are strategies, there are plans, how it will work, how it will pan out, time will say. But I think 1 billion people, if we can touch 1 billion people and make them happy, right? If we can empower them with tools of transformation based on self-motivation and a lot of other things, the world will become a happier place.
Exactly, and we need many more such people, Clincy.
That's the point. It'll be. We'll have to get those people together to further. You know, as I said, it's not just about teaching someone to fish. It will be bringing together a lot of people who can further teach people to fish.
So we are going one step ahead of the.
We'll have to bring together those people who are ready to teach others to fish, because and then amplify their impact. That's how we'll be able to do. Because let's say, for example, if you can teach 20 people to fish, right? If we can help you to teach 200 people to fish, then, you know, we've done like 1,000 times the impact that you were able to have. And if that, and my focus is on that. If we are able to build an infrastructure around it at whatever levels, I think then, dude, because I remember, I'll tell you what. So going to Kerala was an annual retreat when we were in school, right? Yes. Every summer vacation the idea was going to Kerala. And I still remember speaking to my grandfather, who was in his late, I think 60s or early 70s or mid 70s or something, when this incident is happening, where ideally our parents would always say that, you know, because they're not, like my parents are from Kerala, and they are like the first generation of migrants who settled in Mumbai, and they wanted to always go back because, you know, that was their idea of when you are retired, you get to go back to your roots, right? And so the idea was we will chill, relax, not work hard. And then, because as a school kid, we've always had it's part of our culture that we wake up in the morning because we go to school in the morning. So I was up early morning one day, and I see my nana out in the field doing some stuff, cutting some pineapple, doing some basic stuff. And I'm like, why are you like working now? Why do we have like people who can do these things? Why do you have to do it? So then he tells me, Clint, so tell me, what is the difference? What, in your opinion, is the difference between a good farmer and a great farmer? Okay, so studied in a capital, you know, born and raised and studying in a environment where capitalism is very high, right? So this was my response to him. I said a good farmer is somebody who can produce good quality crop. A great farmer is somebody who can produce a lot of good quality crop. Because capitalism, right? Good farmer, good quality crop. Great farmer, a lot of good quality crop. Money. And he laughed and he said, you're right. Like a good farmer or a great farmer, he has to produce good quality crop. But what defines a good farmer and a great farmer is, a good farmer produces that crop for himself or his family members or his near and dear ones. And a great farmer works hard, tirelessly, in the field, in the sun, sweats it out, because he believes that if he works hard, his nation eats food and becomes healthy, right?
Absolutely.
And when he said that, it was kind of I just thought he was joking, or I was too young to understand the magnitude of it. But it's a story that it still, you know, reverberates in my head always, and I can still visualize that going back in time and the whole situation about it. And today it makes a lot of sense, because that's the story of a purpose-driven life. That's the story of not where you or your near and dear ones is what you're working hard for or living for. It's about more than that. It's about your nation. It's about the world now. So just like that,
the bigger picture.
the bigger picture. And I think that's what inspires me today. That's why even the guts to envision 1 billion happy homies of what I want to call them.
You come from a very conservative South Indian family.
Very much. Yeah.
So a very conservative South Indian family, and Clint Swerg is the rock star, the hippie, the guy who's full of energy. How did this happen? I mean, how is a star born out of a conservative family and who's such an extrovert, and you know the whole of you? It doesn't just match. It doesn't fit in. How?
It's inbuilt within me, like determination, resilience, grit. These are certain qualities that is there within me because I'm blessed with, like, you know, it's come from my parents or grandparents and the lineage I'd go above. But the fine line is this, right? My parents are equally, or I would, in my opinion, they're way much more determined and, you know, like more self-motivated about a lot of things in life as compared to what I am. But my resilience was on things that I believed in. Their resilience is, and their action in life is things that they believe in.
Correct.
And I think we are both the same. It's just that slight difference, if at all we have, is just certain belief systems that
the
directions that we have, right? So, of course, a lot of things, like my parents were against the idea of me growing my hair, taking arts from, you know, doing like graduating out of arts from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, or of many decisions or not taking up a regular 9-to-5 job and wanting to be an artist and experiment with a lot of things. So, you know, I know a lot of people who say that I am a self-made man or a self-made woman, right? I did it all by myself. My parents didn't know this industry and, you know, I worked hard. And I appreciate, respect, and, you know, all full power to them. But this is what I feel. Though my parents didn't actively engage with me in my dream of wanting to be an artist, because they didn't know what it would take and what are the uncertainties and all of that. They were, in fact, always telling me not to be a part of this. But you know what is the best part of it? They still fed me food. They still, didn't show any lack of love to me because, you know, I was doing something that they didn't like or they didn't want me to do or whatever. The fight wasn't about their ideas versus my ideas. The fight was about can I have an enhanced personal and professional life, or with what I'm doing I might not. That was the final challenge, right? So I think that we've been able to overcome over the past decade or so. And today when I look at it, the reason I'm talking about this is I'm sure that there is a lot of youngsters watching us and they feel the same, ki yaar, my parents don't support my dreams or whatever. But if they're giving you a place to stay, if they're feeding you food, if they've given you a lot of values, ethics and morals, you have got way much more than what you maybe deserve. Maybe you deserve a little more. I don't know about that. But if you've got that, you've got a lot.
You've got more than most of them have.
Yeah, you've got a lot more than what a lot of people don't even have right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, feel blessed. And I think the story about determination and resilience, that's an individual call. If you're sure about what you want to do, if you believe in yourself, battle it out till the end. Because you don't know that if you had not given up that 6 months ago, right, you wouldn't know what you could have made out of yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think don't give up. Just continue. If you feel whatever you're doing is not wrong, don't give up.
Absolutely.
But there are times that people can have a wrong judgment about what they're doing, right? They might actually be doing something that is damaging for themselves at a physical or a social or a financial or at an ethical level, at various levels. That then, you know, you got to learn from your own life situations. So that's what it is. So that's how, you know, I would say if whatever I've been able to become is, I always say this, it's blessings of my parents and elders, teachings of the teachers, and support of my friends. Because if it wasn't for all these three, it's like three pillars, right? It's like a chair with three pillars. Either of the pillar goes, the chair won't sustain, won't be stable for long. And I think that's where I've been blessed with. I've not been blessed with a lot of, in simple words, a lot of like opportunities where I had a lot of money or resources or whatever, but if I had these three as my core pillar, that kind of helped with, you know, a lot of other things which has become, and because of which the consequence of it has been the ability to make some money, or to travel around the world, or to do whatever, win some awards, or whatever that jazz is. So I think the focus has been, if you have a strong foundation of values, ethics and morals, your life will be fine. Here's what it is. I truly believe social media is an opportunity to let the world know what you want them to know about yourself, right? I share a lot of things, a lot of elements of my life from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. Be it the food that I eat, the people that I chill with, the things that I do, and a lot more, all the elements, right? So people believe and feel that they know so much about me, which is true because I share a lot of things. But what they don't know is there is so much more in my life that is not a part of my everyday social media story, or is not something that they have immediate access to. Only my, there are certain things that I have guarded from keeping it public or making it public. And there are reasons for it. I don't want everything in my life to be a public story, right?
Exactly.
So just to answer to your question, am I seeing someone? Yes, I am seeing someone. Have I been having a lot of romantic date nights and all that jazz? Yes. That's again something that I think I've been very smart about curating it carefully and putting things on social media as well. So yes,
that brings me to this question, Clincy. So what is the point? Do you feel that a person is ready to take the leap of faith?
Oh wow. So here's what it is. In a relationship, right? In largely any relationship, be it personal or professional relationship also, but since we're talking about romantic relationship here, there are two things one need to work on, right? It's what I call a culture of empathy and a culture of problem-solving solutions. I'll tell you what, so let's just, some people might be like, what is empathy? So empathy is if you're going through something very tough, right? My ability to sense that, to feel that you're going through that is empathy, right? A lot of problems in a relationship is because people feel that they don't understand each other. My partner doesn't feel me, doesn't understand me, he doesn't get what I'm saying, or she doesn't get what I'm saying. Culture of empathy will take care of that. And when I say culture, what is culture? Okay, culture is not the clothes we wear or the food we eat or whatever. But having said that, it is that. I'll tell you why. Culture is, so there are actions. This is, let's say we all take, like we act as not act, but everything that we do is an action. Any action done for a longer period of time is behavior.
Okay.
When this behavior is mass done as in when there's a lot of people who believe in that behavior and they do that. Like for example, people before they eat, they will do a sign of cross, or they will like look above, or they will, so that's culture. Because they do it every time before they eat.
Correct.
And that they don't have to actively remember that. Before they eat, they'll either like, whatever their action or move or whatever they do. Before you go to play cricket or football or do whatever, right? Like before, I know a lot of people before hit the stage, they'll go and like do that. And that is by default. They don't have to actively think कि यार मैं stage पे जाने के पहले मैं ये करूँ. And that's why culture. Anything you do it again and again, where you don't have to be forced to have done that. It just naturally comes to you. That's your natural place. So a culture of empathy, a culture of problem-solving attitude. Because again, problem-solving, empathy will. I can know what is wrong with you. I can feel how you are feeling right now. But and because of which maybe you blasted at me, you got angry, whatever happened between us. But if the focus is not on you blasting at me, but at the fact that I know you're going through a certain situation that makes you feel a certain way, and hence you're responding and reacting, keeping in mind all of those things. Now it's my opportunity to look at it as, let's now solve this issue. Versus
Absolutely.
Now, how dare you say that to me? How dare you,
Absolutely.
Do this, do that?
Okay, one last message for the college students out there about how to make it where you are right now.
Dude, I don't think I worked hard at all. I'll tell you why.
Again, he's being modest.
I'll tell you why I feel I haven't struggled a lot is because I loved what I was doing. When you love what you're doing, you don't struggle through it. you just go through, like, it happens to you. But if you do something that you don't love,
Clincy,
then
I have seen you taking those efforts. I've seen he does things effortlessly. Things might come spontaneously to him, but he has worked really hard on the microdynamics, from scheduling stuff to writing down scripts to understanding the audience, understanding the nature of the events, everything in detail. He has, literally slogged it out. He has traveled across cities in week. I mean, over days without sleeping and all that. So he might sound it very effortless, but it has taken a lot of efforts. And I've always asked him, how don't you fall sick? I mean, even if you are sick, the energy is still the same on stage. How do you do that?
Because it's a story of passion there. When you're passionate about something, passion will allow, if you have 100% and then you add passion to it, suddenly, the boundaries are taken away. Then 100% is no more the boundary. There are things beyond boundary that passion can bring in. And I feel as strong as passion is, even more stronger is the idea of purpose. Because now, if you have passion and purpose, dude, that's a lethal combination. I think then there is then the infinity is the limit.
Okay. So to the kids out there, follow your passion and
find your purpose.
And meanwhile, be strong to your rules, be strong to your morals, stick your ground. Just because the others don't play as per the rule book, that doesn't mean you have to do the same. Be smart. Don't be a pushover, be smart, but be ethical. It will take you a long way. In the long run, it will always work. Cheers.
All that I have to say is, don't listen to what he said. Do what you think is right, because you got to find your right and wrong. This is what has worked for the both of us and kind of works for a lot of people. But if you feel you got to play dirty, man. But then you got to face the consequences of whatever it is. In our opinion, I feel, values, ethics and morals, that's what it is. That's the game. Follow your passion, find your purpose, you will make your penny. With that, we come to the end of the amazing podcast, Season 1, Episode 1. We don't have a show yet.
Thank you, Clint, for having me on this podcast.
Actually, thanks, Nikhil, for being a scapegoat, for wanting us to figure out how we're going to do our first episode of the podcast.
Thank you so much.
So this is how I say, keep smiling, keep spreading smiles, stay happy. I'm going to see you in the next episode.
Woohoo!
Well, we truly believe that you enjoyed watching this podcast, and if you think this podcast can add some value to your friends and family's lives, please go ahead, like, share and comment on this video, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. The Engage and Inspire podcast is also available in the audio versions on the following platform. Please go ahead, give it a quick check. Let us know what you think about the podcast in the comment section down below. In the meanwhile, you guys keep smiling, keep spreading smiles and stay happy. We're going to see you in the next podcast. This is what it's going to look like. So, Bibu, how does it feel to be my girlfriend? Come on, let's bring it down. Oh my God. Bye.